It's 2 days away. This used to be like the biggest day on the recruiting calendar, but as we approach Wednesday, only 2 prospects inside the top 247 remain uncommitted. It is Tai Haywood, an offensive tackle, and Zahir Mathis, an edge rusher. 2 guys with some options, so I'm going to open it up to you. What do we need about Tai Haywood on Monday as of 2 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah, we expect something to come out today, whether it's from him or whether it's sourced. But I'm feeling pretty good about Michigan at this point, and talking to sources from Michigan, from Florida State, even some people where he was committed to initially at Alabama, and all signs point toward the Michigan Wolverines getting this one done. Now, this one was kind of unique. For a long time, he was committed to Alabama, and people expected him to just cut and dry land with the Crimson Tide. But then they kind of parted ways, and he wasn't sent an NLI, even if that's a thing anymore. But he kind of parted ways from Alabama. Michigan, Florida State kind of moved into the driver's seat for him. And at this point, I think I'd be pretty shocked. I think a lot of people that cover recruiting would be pretty shocked if Michigan didn't eventually land Tai Haywood. And then with Zahir Mathis, you got Maryland, you got Florida State, UCLA all involved. But if you look at the 24/7 Sports crystal ball, if you see what our guys Jeff Ehrman and Brian Doan, those guys are doing related to Zahir Mathis, all signs point towards Maryland. It seems like the Terps are, I would say they feel the best right now with landing Mathis. I talked to somebody at Florida State this morning that simply said, we don't feel good. So I think at this point, you got to like the Terrapins to get that one done.
Well, let's talk about Tai Haywood, number 42 overall player in the country, number 10 offensive tackle. He at one point was a 5-star prospect for us, playing some elite competition there in the Lone Star State. This kid's got all of the tools, and really the class of 2025, the theme is these big bodies up front, right? We only have so much space in our top 32 for these offensive tackles. Tai Haywood, a guy at the end, he just didn't have a spot in that first round, but he's a guy that we still think has first round potential at some point down the line. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Alex Leatherwood, who used to be at Alabama. I think he's got inside-outside potential. You could try him on the left side as a left tackle, but he might be better suited for a right tackle posting. Now, if Michigan is the pick, I mean, this is just another blue chipper headed to Ann Arbor to play for Sharon Moore, who not too long ago, it seems like we had a lot of question marks kind of about his future. Well, what does Sharon Moore do? I mean, he beats Ohio State, but the big, I think, takeaway as we head into 2025 is he's got the nation's #1 recruit signed, sealed, and delivered in Bryce Underwood. And the Wolverines, they shoot up into the rankings. They also have a 5-star offensive lineman in Andrew Babalola. I'm saying this right now, Tom, when we talk about Michigan 2025, I think that's going to set the stage for the Wolverines in 2026. Remember, they're losing a lot to the NFL. Bryce Underwood, he's going to be a true freshman. Is he ready to go week 1? I'm not sure. I think he's going to start games, but I don't know if he's a guy you give the keys to right away. So it's going to be a building year. And I think if they get Tai Haywood in the boat, he's a nice another building block along with Andrew Babalola, our number 2 ranked offensive tackle. I mean, Michigan's known for its trench play. This will be another big body up front for Sharon Moore to work with.
I think I want to just credit to you because, yes, Tai Haywood was a 5-star. Just going back to your initial point, Tai Haywood was a 5-star. You guys dropped him down to number 42 overall. I was kind of picking some brains of some offensive line coaches that I respect just to be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this kid? Before I even told them where he was headed in our rankings. And they agreed. They thought the senior tape was just a little underwhelming. They just were a little unsure about him as a prospect. But they had the same feeling. They were like, loved him coming up in high school, sophomore, junior. And then he kind of just, I wouldn't say tailed off. Obviously, there's still a ton to work with. Great clay, as you call it. But again, when you piece him, Andrew Babalola, Bryce Underwood, you see how bright potentially the future could be at Michigan. So you got to be fired up if you're a Wolverines fan.
And then Zahir Mathis, right? Number 166 overall, number 20 edge rusher. This is a kid we saw at the Under Armour All-America game a few weeks ago in Orlando. He had 3 tackles in that game. Also had a nice pressure where he hit the quarterback. To me, this is someone with NFL features. We're talking about 35-inch arms, a near 7'10" wingspan. And for Maryland, man, if they were able to get him into the boat, that would move Mike Locksley's class from number 29 in the rankings all the way up to number 22. And just like with Michigan, Maryland has a quarterback of the future signed, sealed, and delivered in Malik Washington. So this is one where I'm keeping my eye on it. And I think if you're the Terps, this is the type of prospect you usually haven't had access to in the past. I think Zahir Mathis is a guy that's going to need a developmental year or two, right? Kind of find his bearings. He's more finesse than he is power. I'd love to see him incorporate some strength into his game. But for Mike Locksley, keep an eye on Maryland. When we talk about revenue sharing, kind of the new look with the name, image, and likeness, some of these programs, all of a sudden they have these allocations, these resources, this money to use. And if they can get Zahir Mathis, it would be a huge win for them. Tom, those two aren't the only guys still on the board. We got Tai Haywood, Zahir Mathis. There's a cornerback out there committed to Tennessee, Onis Konanbanny, originally from over the seas there in London, longtime Tennessee pledge, like I said. Kid grew up playing soccer, has found the game of football. He's prepped there in South Carolina. But it sounds like you like Florida heading into Wednesday for the number 53 ranked cornerback.
It's funny, I was looking back at some text messages I got. So back on December 3rd, which was my birthday, I woke up to some happy birthday texts. But in the midst of that, I got a text of, hey, flip your pick. Onis to Florida. It's done. It's going to happen. So that same day, I checked into it, put my crystal ball pick in for Florida. And 2 months later, I have no reason to think that he's going to end up staying with the Volunteers. I fully expect him to flip to the Gators. And I honestly think that this has been done for a couple months now. I mean, he did his announcement kind of live with us at 24/7 Sports, and we were kind of hoping to get it done again, but the school kind of does things a little differently. So sadly, we're not going to be able to get that when he announces on Tuesday. But I think this was a case of dotting the I's, crossing the T's. Florida's expected to win out, and I think he just adds to what is a really, really good class in 2025 under Billy Napier.
It's the DJ Lagway effect, right? Florida was sitting outside the top 50 in the rankings at the start of October. DJ Lagway rattles off 3 wins in a row, the former 5-star quarterback, and now Florida sitting in the top 10. Onis would be the 14th flip for Billy Napier in that stretch. I mean, you want to talk about a heavy spatula, momentum on the recruiting front. I mean, Florida's recruiting class that has come together. Dallas Wilson, they get in from Oregon, Jaden Woods from Penn State, Hilton Stubbs from Miami, Tavares Dice from Auburn, Ty Jackson from USC. I mean, they are getting guys that were committed to really, really good programs. And you take Onis, you pair him with Ben Hanks, a major riser for us in our most recent rankings update. Same with Hilton Stubbs. I love what Florida is potentially doing in the secondary, and I love how Billy Napier is building it the way he wants to build it. He is building it through the high school ranks. They're not leaning heavily on the transfer portal. I think that's going to pay off for Florida at some point down the line. Tom, you also got your eye on one other linebacker out there in Nevada. Tell me what we need to know.
AJ Tuitele, number 95 overall linebacker in the country, signed with Washington State, but he got out of his paperwork and is expected to make a decision this week, according to our own Blair Angulo, one of the best covering the West Coast. Now, some people are looking at USC, Texas, Arizona, but I checked in with sources, a variety of sources Monday morning, just to kind of get the latest pulse. So when I talked to people at Washington, they stopped recruiting him, never really made a huge push to get him. Arizona filled up. Texas not recruiting him. The one school that's recruiting him and is pushing extremely hard, the USC Trojans. So all signs point toward the Trojans getting this one done, adding to Tuitele, and adding to what I think is a really, really good 2025 recruiting class.
Lincoln Riley's got to figure it out, man. 15-11 the past 2 years under him there in LA, 4-5 year one in the Big Ten. Chad Bowden, general manager from Notre Dame, he arrives in LA. I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do on the recruiting front as they look to kind of get a plan in place and turn things around there at USC.